I'm Katie Bennett-Stenton, a dual Australian US citizen and the National Marketing Lead for Energy, Resources and Industrials with Deloitte in Australia. I'm fortunate enough to be spending 2 exciting months based in the US while I put my kids into school and finalise their US citizenship. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to spend time with a number of global experts, thinkers and leaders. I'm currently immersing myself in a different culture within a much larger team, and I'm excited about the insights and learnings. Throughout this time, I'm speaking to a number of different leaders and sharing thought-provoking, relevant and influential takeaways. Today, I'm really excited to be speaking with John England, a senior oil and gas partner and lead global client service partner who I first met in Melbourne 4 years ago. John, great to speak to you today.
Great to speak to you as well. It's good to be talking with you. Great to have you over here in the States. I'm just excited to be here. You want me to tell you a little about my background? Sure. Yeah. So I'm a lifer with Deloitte. I've spent 29 years now with Deloitte right out of school, and really spent all of that based here in Houston, and all of that working in the energy industry with energy clients. So started in our audit practice, then helped start and led our energy trading and risk management practice for a number of years. So I still kind of hold myself out as a bit of an expert in that area, and then moved into oil and gas leadership and ran our U.S. and America's oil and gas practice for the last 5 years, and have just stepped out of that to become a lead client service partner on one of our large clients.
Excellent. Thanks, John. And Houston is obviously the place to be around oil and gas. John, how would you say that your life and career are improving or have improved as a result of being better connected with people across the globe?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the things I really love about my job, that I've really got a chance to explore so many different parts of the globe. And I didn't get to do that a lot growing up. I kind of grew up in Texas and didn't move a lot. So it's been really great. And I think what you get from that is you just get, as you experience different cultures and talk to different people, you just realize that there's these different perspectives that you can gain from that you would never get. And I want to say particularly Americans, I think, tend to be a little insular and too often kind of have that American point of view. And listen, I love my country, but I also recognize that there's different points of views that you gain from traveling and seeing different parts of the world. So the more I do that, I think the greater it kind of changes my worldview and makes me think a little bit more globally, and I think that's helpful.
Great, thanks, John. I'd like to change tact entirely. What advice would you give to your 10-year-old self?
Yeah, that's a funny one. I mean, my 10-year-old self, the biggest thing I would say is just have fun, because to be honest, I have fun every day in my job. I love what I do, and I've loved raising a family and all those things. But life gets really complicated, right? Yeah. And so I think as a 10-year-old, you need to enjoy life. I almost worry a little bit that too many kids, they're thrown into things so young these days, and everybody's told you got to focus on this, and they're studying Latin at 3 years old, and
yes.
That's. I just think we need to let kids have some fun, and so I tell my 10-year-old self, have fun while you can, and then you'll work hard the rest of your life.
Yeah. And do you speak Latin?
Not at all. Not even a bit.
I like your example, though. John, what's been the biggest turning point in your career?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because it actually involves Australia. So when I was, I guess, in my 5th year at the firm, I had the opportunity to do an overseas assignment to Australia, and so I was newly married. My wife and I were ready to go. And that would have been the direction I went. I probably would have, and I was in our audit practice, I probably would have stayed in audit the rest of my career. Probably, if I'd done that, for all I know, I might have fallen in love with Australia and never came back. But instead, what happened is when I was asked to stay, because we had a unique opportunity and stay in Houston, and not make that journey. And what it did is they asked me to take over a large client that was actually just starting into the energy trading business. So it's really where I changed my shift and became an energy trading kind of guy. And this is the early stages of 1993. So trading's just becoming big. And so kind of by chance, I get this huge opportunity, and I fell into something I just absolutely loved, and I felt, I was passionate. I learned everything I could about it. I became, I understood how traders thought, how risk people thought, and so it was a huge kind of break in my career, in that it kind of set me apart, and from there on, my path, upward moved actually quite quickly, as I found the thing I was really loved and was quite good at. So,
I like that. What is the one thing that you would change about the business environment of today?
Well, I think with all the technology we have, which is great and makes us quite efficient, I also think we multitask too much and we try to do too many things. And I feel like we need to slow down a little and spend a little bit more time building relationships with people, because ultimately I think relationships make so many things work in the world, and I think relationships overcome a lot of other issues you have in terms of organizational structures and anything else, right? And so I really, as I've grown older and potentially wiser, I guess, in my career, I've really understood the importance of relationships, and I've actually been sort of enjoyed. Maybe I've become to understand the importance of slowing down a little bit and just taking the time, talking to people, listening more, and not always just trying to move so fast, because it's not always about speed. It's about I think listening and really focusing your efforts in the right areas.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm interested, just to follow that up a little bit, John. Do you think technology is potentially causing that issue in terms of us speeding up and becoming less focused and multitasking?
I do. I mean, I think about it. We communicate online all the time. We communicate via text and everything else. And I listen. I think it's really efficient. I mean, I use it a lot. I use it with my family even a lot. But I mean, I think it worries me because there's almost this feel like if you're not always doing something, that's wrong, right? I mean, you actually, I mean, I kind of feel guilty sometimes if I haven't checked my phone in 2 minutes, right? Yeah. And that I'm not sure that's healthy personally for your well-being, but I'm not actually sure it even makes you better at business, because I actually think slowing down and being thoughtful and again, really listening to people and building the relationships you can build, but is instead of just hustling past them in the office, but actually slowing down and stopping to talk, I think is something I'm trying to get better at, and I think everybody would benefit from it.
I agree. I was listening to a podcast the other day about the evolution of technology and the dopamine hits that we get when we look at our phone, and we have likes on Facebook or Instagram, and the fact that we were not designed for that constant seeking of attention and validation. It's interesting. John, what might people not know about you?
I'll give you two things. One is I've ran in 10 marathons, so I'm very proud of that. Love running. Don't quite make the marathons these days, more the half marathons, but I love that.
That's my preferred distance.
Much better. But the one that really surprises people is I've danced in 8 productions of the Nutcracker. Now,
tell me more. That's fantastic.
Now, in fairness, it was at the studio that both of my daughters danced at. Okay. And I danced as one of the party parents, so I wasn't in tights. People always ask me that. No tights.
That's disappointing.
No tights, but kind of a Victorian tuxedo, and I learned a very intricate dance. And I have to admit, I started off doing it just to spend some more time with my daughters. Sure. By the end, I absolutely loved it. I actually made some lifelong friends with the other couples we danced with, and it was a really great experience. So.
That's fantastic. I love asking that question because some of the stories that come out. So when can we see you on stage next?
Not anytime soon. Trust me.
That's very disappointing. Listeners, check back in. I'll keep abreast of that and keep you posted. John, would you say that you learn more from failure or success?
Probably you learn more from failure. I'm at the point I don't want to learn anymore, if that's what it takes. No, but no, you learn more from failure. But the joy of success is what really drives me. I mean, I get such a rush out of winning, right? And I have to admit that, it's and I love winning in anything, and I'm fairly competitive, but it's that being able to envision success to me is really. It's great. It helps drive you. It helps set you this course where you want to go. So I would say I'm driven by the desire for success, but you do really learn from failure. And I've over the years I've gotten better at really stepping back and analyzing failure, not getting mad about it, because I used to just get mad, and now I think I'm much better at saying, okay, so there's a reason why I failed. I did something wrong, even if I don't like the outcome, even if I feel the outcome was unfair, right? Yep. You still have to just step back and ask yourself, what could I have done differently? Because there's always something you could have done differently. So I think you can learn so much from that.
Yeah. Thank you. I think you're right. John, are there any significant challenges that you've navigated in your career that you've drawn special strength or insight from that you'd like to share?
I guess, I'm just trying to think. That's a tough one. I guess the biggest challenges I've had have been, I think I sometimes get very frustrated because I want to move more quickly than other people sometimes want to move. And I think that has probably not always, at times, I talked earlier about the importance of slowing down. I wasn't good at that earlier in my career. And so I think because of that, I often pushed too hard, and sometimes that strained relationships. It hurt my credibility in terms of my ability to get things done, more so internally than externally. Sure. But yeah, I think that's the biggest challenges I always faced were actually trying to slow down and understand where another person was coming from on an issue when we differed, and kind of putting myself in their shoes. And I think as I've gotten better at that, I've gotten better at navigating those situations. But that was certainly a big challenge for me earlier in my career.
Thank you. That's certainly one I can relate to. What does nirvana look like in your career, John?
I don't know. I think I may be in nirvana in my career. I mean, I have to admit, I've loved my career. I was talking to somebody just the other day, and I said, I asked that person, I said, are you happy? And they said, oh, I don't know. Who's happy? Are you happy? And I said, yes, I'm very happy. I mean, I love my job. I love working with people who challenge me, and I work with a lot of people that are younger than me now, and they're so smart and so driven, and so it's great to work in that environment. I work with clients that I love to help come up with solutions for clients, and so I feel great about that. I get to travel and go to great places. So, to me, I'm doing all the things that I've always wanted to do in my career. So there's not, I say that, and there'll always be something new and some challenge in front of me that I want to take on. But, I'd say, if 20 years ago you'd asked me what do I want to be doing, I can't say it would be a lot different than what I'm doing now, unless I was like playing shortstop for the Houston Astros. But that seems unlikely at this stage.
Damn it, that's very disappointing. Okay, we've got a couple of fun ones now. What's your favourite song and why? That would be the song Tom Sawyer by Rush. It is one of the great rock and roll songs of all time. It has great lyrics. They're a very deep band, but they play great music, and I always get inspired by that song. I used it as my walk-on music from the oil and gas conference last time. I love that.
Yeah, so it's it's just a song that always gets me fired up.
I love the little analogy of using it as your walk-on song too, just to get it really pumped up. That's great. And if you could invite 3 guests, living or not, to dinner, who would they be?
Ooh, living or not? Okay, that's tough. Bill Gates would be one. I find Bill Gates fascinating. He's, I don't know, any guy who wakes up in the morning and goes, I think I'm going to try to solve malaria in Africa or something. I just find him to be a fascinating guy.
So more so from because of what he's doing in recent years rather than the Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy who clearly, when he sets his mind to something, can achieve it. But some of the way he's pivoted from being this amazing businessman to this amazing and very pragmatic philanthropist, to me is just, he's one of the most admired people in the world right now. So he'd be one. Okay, so I saw Bill Clinton speak a couple years ago, and I got to say, Bill Clinton seems like he would be the funnest guy to have dinner with. Yeah. Just the stories that guy could tell, huh? Yeah. I mean, some interesting ones, but I mean, the things he's been through. So Bill Clinton was kind of on my list.
Okay. And can I interject again? Was it a big dinner? Was it a big speaking engagement that you heard him at, or something more intimate?
No, it was a pretty big thing, but I mean, he just struck me as the kind of guy that he would be hilarious to get together with. I only had two, so can I stop there?
You
but
can stop there.
Okay, I'll stop there.
Well, I'd like to come to that dinner as well.
Okay, so Katie will be my third.
Obviously, you forgot to mention me, but I like that. John, what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever been given?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably not one, but I guess there's probably three different things that come to mind. One is to not be afraid to make decisions. Right? I think you have to listen. So I think you have to listen, but then ultimately, good leaders have to make decisions, and they have to be willing to live with the decisions, and they own those decisions, right? I have no place for somebody who doesn't own the consequences of their decisions, right? So I've made decisions in my career as a leader, and some have worked and some haven't, and that's okay. But what I think some people are just a little too slow to ever want to make the decision. They want to point at others. They want to try to get, and ultimately, good leaders just have to be decisive, and they have to set a path and set a vision and make the decisions they think are best to try to get there. So I think that the one other thing that I mentioned is just being humble. I really think great leaders are humble by nature, and I've been blessed to know some really good ones that have given me some great advice over the years. But the best leaders I've ever met have been humble leaders, and they didn't need to draw attention to themselves. They were just such good leaders that people wanted to work for them. People want to run through walls for them, and so that's always impressed me, and that's something I've tried to do in my career.
It seems like a good segue onto matters political, but we might steer clear of that while we're recording. John, you talked a little bit about this through some of our earlier discussion, but I wonder if you could just talk in a little bit more detail about where you got to where you are now in terms of leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I think a few things is early on I really went deep in the areas that I was interested in. So, and as a general rule, just doing things, following things, going deep into the areas that you're interested in is important, right? You have to have a passion for these things. So I think doing that, I think also then, I talked about listening. I guess I say listening a lot, but listening to people and then building relationships with people, I think is critical. And then just really investing in people, right? So you gotta make decisions about who you think you want on your team, and then when they get there, you got to give them rope and you got to let them go, right? And so I think that's something I've always really tried to do is invest in people, support people 110%, whether they do well or whether they make mistakes. But once they know I'm behind them, I'm going to stay behind them 110%. And I think doing that really inspires people, and they make them want to work for you. You kind of get this relationship of trust, and when you have that, really good things happen.
Yeah. John, second last question, because the last one I want to ask about your recent half marathons. But the last question, do you have any career advice for listeners and viewers out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to follow things that you're really interested and passionate about. The term I always use is intellectual curiosity. So, it's funny because I remember early in my career hearing that term, and I'm probably not really understanding what it meant, but I will say to a large degree that's what I followed in my career is I found energy derivatives fascinating when I was young, and so I got into that, and then later on I got into a lot of different parts of the oil and gas business, and I went really deep on that, and I got to know it really well, and so I think building that knowledge, and at the same time really just investing the time it takes to know that thing really well, but then also to use your leadership and relationship skills. That's what makes you stand out. And it's not like, I think it's also important that not everybody wants to be a leader, right? And that's okay. We need people in so many different areas, and they can add so much depth. So you shouldn't, I think too many people today feel like, I've got to, stand in front of the room and take the helm. I think, just doing the thing that you're comfortable with, that you love doing, that you're passionate about, you'll do it well, and you'll add value, and in doing so, you'll find something you enjoy. But forcing yourself into positions that you're not comfortable with, ultimately, I'm not sure that gets you to a good place. So.
Thank you. And Don, just in closing, tell me about some of your recent half marathons, or do you have any coming up at the moment?
Yeah, I'm going to run the Houston half marathon again in January. I ran that last year, so that's my latest one. And yeah, to me, just running's it's how I get rid of my stress.
I agree.
Yeah, it's great, and running in Houston's not always easy. But one thing I do love is because I travel so much. I think it's absolutely one of the best ways to explore a city.
Yeah.
You're nodding your head, so you know that.
Yeah.
I've explored many of Australia's great cities that way: Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, all great places to run.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think running is just it's my relief. It's my tonic, and it's also the great way to explore the world. So.
Absolutely. And probably just in closing, do you have any recommendations on any good runs while I'm in Houston? I've got another week here.
Yeah, absolutely. Memorial Park is beautiful, so you've got to run Memorial Park and then run the bayou. There's this bayou that runs kind of right through downtown here.
Okay.
Very nice. So highly recommended. And depending on when you go, I'll get out there with you. Okay.
Well, I would love that. We didn't quite manage it in Melbourne, so that would be awesome. John, I've really enjoyed our conversation. It's great to be in your hometown and really appreciative of some of the nuggets and gems that you've shared with us.
Great. Thanks very much. I really enjoyed it.